Well, now I look back and go, was God, when you're questioning, and why is this thing happening? Is it happening to me or for me? And now,
It's
without a
happening for
doubt,
you, 100%.
without a doubt, I know it was happening for me. And that's the thing that if you can frame that when things happen to you, like is this happening to me or for me? And I believe everything is happening for you.
No. Ooh, that's better, right, babe?
Yeah. She founded an architectural concrete company.
He founded a $100 million clothing company.
She took the world by storm as a social media star.
He took the world by storm as a famous serial entrepreneur.
Together we started a business.
And had babies.
Now we're figuring out the best ways to do both.
Join us as we learn from other entrepreneurs going through the same life struggles.
As they share their life hacks about success, love, kids.
And everything in between.
It ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. Quote by Sylvester Stallone. Get knocked down, but I get up again. Never going to keep me down. Quote by Timberwamba.
Welcome to the Pretty and Punk Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Caldwell, and I'm here with my beautiful wife,
Ildiko Ferenczi.
Welcome to another great podcast, and today we want to talk about how do you get back up after you've been knocked down to your knees? How do you find your way back up to your feet after you've been knocked down and you're just in the worst place of your life? How do you pull yourself up by your bootstrap? And everybody has been there on different levels. But everybody has been there.
And some more times than others.
I mean, imagine the guy, when you think about people who have, lost their job or lost a family member, and then just over and over, all these things that have happened. I think you get better at it. You get better at how to recover. You understand how bad things can get, and then you figure out a way how to get back up. And once you've got back up once, you know how to get back up again. But before we jump into that, hey guys, we hope you're enjoying today's episode of the Pretty and Punk Podcast. And if you are, and you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, it just takes a second. It means so much to us because it really helps the podcast get out there to more listeners like you guys. And if you know anybody it might help and you can send it to them, we really appreciate that too.
We also love and appreciate your reviews. Even the babies look forward to them every day. If you share this episode on social media today, don't forget to tag us. We want to celebrate you because we know it's not easy being a parent in business, and the way that you juggle things makes you a superhero. That's worth a shout out. Together, we have a community of our personal followers as well, and we just want to put it out there. We want to show everybody that this juggle is possible, and you are our family, and we're so proud and grateful to have you a part of this family. So don't forget, all the links are below in the show notes, and thank you again, and let's get back to the show.
How do you find your way back up after you've been knocked down to your knees? How do you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get going again? Guys like Steve Jobs, who were fired from his own company. They call him the comeback kid. How do you get fired from your own company and come back to do the things that he did? And he takes Apple to new heights, and it just found himself. I want to say, I think a lot of that comes from just believing in yourself, knowing that you can get knocked down. He probably got knocked down at some point and then found his way back up through, I don't know if it was the Pixar deal or something before that, but how did he find himself back up and then fix it or fix his state of mind so that he could make this big comeback of his?
What's a time you've been knocked down and got up better?
Well, I think I've been knocked down a lot, but I think probably And you know, when Charles passed away, that was really hard.
Yeah.
But I was at this point already where I dealt with so much in our business that even though it was probably one of my worst times of my life, I was in a better place. But the one time that I felt like that I was really distraught, that I didn't feel like I was going to come back, was when I got released from the police department.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'd always believed this was going to be my career. And so there was no plan B. This was it. This is all I was going to do. I was going to become a police officer. I was going to go out there and save lives. And I would do that for the rest of my life. I hadn't thought of anything different.
Right.
And when all of a sudden that rug is pulled out from under you, when they, the city was getting annexed and they told me that I wasn't going to be a part of that hiring and that I was being let go, I just had no plan B.
Right.
And it literally felt like I was crushed. Like it was, if there was ever, that was probably the lowest part of my life, because not only did I feel crushed, but I didn't feel like there was any way out.
Right. Oh, that's so interesting, because that low part of your life was just, when you look back on it now, it's so small, right? I wouldn't say small, but the things that have come into your life success-wise and your life purpose, it's so much different than what you thought the picture would be.
Well, now I look back and go, was God, when you're questioning, and why is this thing happening? Is it happening to me or for me? And now,
It's
without a
happening for
doubt,
you, 100%.
without a doubt, I know it was happening for me. And that's the thing that if you can frame that when things happen to you, like is this happening to me or for me? And I believe everything is happening for you. There's nothing happening in your life that is not happening for you.
Right.
It might be hard to see that
And understand it, because some things are so
moment.
traumatic that happen to people.
Oh, I mean, when your brother passed away, I'm sure that wasn't. You're like, how could anything positive come out of this?
Nothing made sense. You're right. And when my mom, it's so funny, I took the day off because my mom and I were running the jewelry store. And I also had my own business, a party shop. I was 13 years old, but my mom was preparing just in case if something happened. She wanted me to be able to support myself. Back in Europe, kids were in apprenticeships at between 13 to 16, and then you do your career. So she wanted me to be ready for life. And she wasn't going to let me stay home. I was sick. And I said, Mom, I'm sick. I don't want to go to school. She said, then you got to come into work. Well, that very day that I went into work, I had unpacked all the jewelry, because this is what, if you are in the jewelry store business, you have to unpack and then pack up the jewelry at night. I unpacked everything. A client or customer came in, and then a customer went into my store. We would run between the stores, or I would run between the stores. The party shop had nothing to do with her. And during that time that I was helping a customer, she got robbed at gunpoint. So that was another trauma. And I just couldn't understand. Like, there was all these things happening in our lives. Life was very, very good, but we had the most traumatic situations happen. Even when I was in the concrete business, I was in a restaurant, we're just having, I finally felt like nothing bad can ever happen in this business, but these two guys came in, there was a gangsters against gangsters, and there was an armed, what is it called?
Robbery?
Not a robbery, but it's like a gang war.
Yeah.
They all over the restaurant. And the loudest guy, who happened to be my partner, knocked me down under the table. And it's interesting in those situations too. I know you would be one of the guys that would be like, get down. But I remember everybody, it was like slow motion and everybody just paused. And there's this, what is it, an automatic rifle?
Yeah, like us.
Because it sounded like this.
Yeah.
And then he goes, get down. And then he pushed all of us under the table. And I kept thinking, like, why is this stuff happening? But then, as you were saying, so your moment that you got fired and then you had other traumatic experiences, it's almost like God is giving you this like iron warrior, this strength within you. You had to go through all these little things, because when I had the babies and I had the newborn and a doctor decided, well, not decided, but the test, he gave me the diagnosis, which, nobody's ready for that. Nobody's ready to tell you that when you think you are at the peak, healthiest of your life, and you have 2 little babies, and they say that life is not guaranteed, that they give you a death sentence, you're not ready for that. Like, you have to have a very mentally strong, this is stuff that they prepare you in, the military. This is not something that a new mom is prepared to face, that she's going to have to fight for her life. And she's got 2 little babies, and they're trying to tell her that tomorrow's not promised because of this diagnosis and this stuff on the paper. I feel that you're right. God gives you things in your life. And I understood my brother's life. He was healthy. He was strong. He took a job to help us. And by freak accident, he died. And how many times did I come so close? I watched my mom, she had her head pouring with blood and just all these close brushes. And then they tell me that this is going to happen. I understood how precious life was. And I know that parents say, I will die for my children. And without a doubt, I would if I needed to. And I will fight for my kill, for your kids. But nobody really talks about, I will live for my kids. That's a totally different fight that nobody really thinks about.
It might be the hardest fight, because it's easy to get out. There's a lot of people who take the easy way out and don't think about the, how that's going to affect the people around them.
Right.
And I think that, that you're right in the way that maybe some of those things that you went through early on in life prepared you for what was going to happen.
The biggest fight of my life.
Because you were, in a lot of ways, you were the strongest person in the room when it came to those, you were the person who, you faced that giant. And I could say what I could, but I always felt like whatever I said always was falling on kind of like, man, I can't.
Well, it was interesting too how God made it happen. I thought I was just going in to get some standard results. And when the doctor said you need to sit down, I said, no, I'd rather stand. I'm in a place where there's sick people sitting on the chairs. I don't want to get any cooties. I got a newborn in the car. I'll just leave my newborn in the car, my other little baby in the car, and my husband. I don't want to, as a mother, you don't want to risk anybody else getting sick, going into the hospital environment. I always went in there by myself. Afterwards, I already knew I had to go into the cancer hospital and stuff. And it was interesting because you see all these families and they have these big support systems. And I'm going in by myself because I don't want the kids to get sick. I don't want it's just my husband and I don't want him to get sick. And I had to, deal with all this bad news by myself, this little petite mama. But I'll never forget the doctor. I don't know what's the standard way for a doctor to act, but he asked me to sit down, and I said what I don't want to catch anything from the chair. I got the babies in the car, and he said, well, do you want to ask your husband to come in? I said, no, we're just going to be quick. And at that point, he was up against the wall. I'm looking around. I could see he has a daughter, probably the same age as me, with little babies. And all of a sudden, his eyes were just red. They're tearing up. and he tells me the news. And I said, I can't have that. I got 2 babies. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, he starts crying and I'm not, because he probably sees his daughter and he know, like, he's done this, hopefully not often, but he's done this before. So he knows that whoever he's giving the news to usually has a support system.
Yeah.
So,
but I think everybody, and it prepared you for that. And I know that dealing with Charles's passing, when he passed away in 2009 in his car accident, I knew that
you were prepared.
I was forged already. I was forged through the fires of, being fired, dealing with things in the business every day.
The trauma prepared you for that.
Yeah, even though
awful
a lot of
moment.
The trauma was nowhere near that level, I think it was just little pieces along the way, dealing with the business ups and downs, and money issues, and just everything. And everything up to that point brought me to that moment and allowed me to have to at least put the face on, even though I was still hurting.
Also, I just see a parallel right now, and you can speak for it, but I want to bring it up before we pass the moment, is that your business at the time was your baby and your clients were the baby. So you had to be strong, like I had to be strong. And all that work and stuff, losing things, fighting for things, trauma, all that stuff prepared you for that leadership role that you had to be in and what I had to be in.
Yeah. I think that, putting that face on. So that was the part that didn't even allow you to fall to your knees, because you have to stand up and take it at that moment.
Yeah.
But I think, when I was going back to when I was let go from the police department, I'm trying to think of what pulled me back out of that moment. And I think there was some piece of belief in myself. It was very small at that point, because I felt really battered and taken down, and just loss of self-esteem.
Right. That happens with a lot of injured athletes too.
Oh, I could totally see it. The same thing.
Yeah, that's hard.
Your identity is this badge.
In that, yeah.
And, or an athlete, your identity as a football player or a basketball player, or a runner, or whatever you are. Yeah. And that's where your identity is held. And when that identity is taken away, when that badge was taken away, you weren't ready. I wasn't ready for that. But I knew there were parts of me that had been so strong for so long, becoming a police officer, that moments of dealing with danger, running into the face of danger, bullets whizzing by your head, in foot chases and car chases and all these things that I'd gone through. I'd been a police officer for around 7 years. And going through all those moments forged me a little bit. I didn't feel strong at the moment, but I always felt like something in my gut said I had something better for me, something that I'm supposed to do.
That's God.
And
that's God's promise.
When Charles came to me that day, he was also a police officer at the time. He came to me that day and said, "Hey, I have this idea for this clothing company. You want to start this clothing company together, and we could, it'll be about mixed martial arts, and we'll make these t-shirts, and we'd never print a shirt in our life." But the challenge in front of me just felt right. And it felt like I was at a moment, a crossroads in my life.
Yeah.
And rather than trying to fix what this thing that had been broken, to tackle this new thing that I wanted to do. And it felt like I just wanted to give 1,000% of me to it.
Yeah.
And so maybe I found a new mountain to climb.
Yep. That makes sense.
Maybe that's what it was, because we're all guaranteed that if you're at the top of a mountain somewhere, if you're feeling like everything is perfect, like you said you did before, like in your concrete business and the shooting happens, or, before your brothers, you're really close and everything's great, and your mom has this jewelry shop, and then your brother, is killed. So all these things, I think in that moment, if you're at the top of some mountain somewhere, you can pretty much guarantee there's a peak coming. I mean, there's
Come back.
There's a bottom of the
comeback.
mountain
There's something
coming.
good coming. And that's the thing is you have to sometimes embrace the fall. Right? Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean,
and you can't dwell on the failures and you can't get stuck in the grief. You have to move through it. You have to find the good thing, whatever it is that carries you through. If you're going through grief, remember the memories, the lessons, the beautiful things. Like you have to focus on those things. Don't blame yourself. Don't get stuck in this trap that you could be stuck in. I mean, I know that's very hard because there's nothing, if you're going through grief right now, there's nothing you can say that will make someone feel better or take the pain away. The pain will always be there, but you have to let it ignite some kind of hope and goodness within you. Otherwise, you can be so lost.
I was listening to
Excuse me.
What's Granger's last name?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Granger speaking about his the loss of his son.
Oh, no.
And he was talking about how grief can just snatch the joy out of everything in your life.
Right.
And it's so true that, it's hard to find bright spots when you're in those moments, when you're going through that, when you're in the thick of things.
Spiral.
And I was trying to think of valleys. I was trying to think of the word peaks and valleys.
Peaks and valleys,
If you're at the top of this peak, there's a valley coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to have this growth mindset, I think,
Yeah.
where you feel like, hey, if this happens, or if I'm going through this right now, or I am in the middle of something, that I'm meant to learn something here.
Right.
And you just have to find the lessons in it, I think.
Right. I mean, you're going to feel the pain. It's the hardest thing, losing a loved one. And I've gone through it twice now. But you have to be open to the positive things, the good things. That's the only thing that's going to carry you through.
And even the smaller things.
The
losing
smaller
a job.
Well, if you lose a child, you have to be so careful because you have more than one. You can't get lost in the grief because you have this other beauty around you. And I saw that. I could imagine the struggle that he had probably maybe he still has a struggle, but my mom went through that struggle.
Yeah. But your mom, like your mom, he had other kids. Your mom had other kids that she had to be there for.
Yeah, exactly.
And she had to go on living and do what I think is the hard thing, which is get back up and go on living because you have to do it for other people.
Yeah.
Because you can't, it's not just for yourself anymore. Mm-hmm. It's not a selfish thing. You're getting up and pulling your bootstraps up because you have to do it for other people.
Right. And there's a type of grief after you losing your job. There's a type of grief in there too. A type of grief when you're told that you're given some kind of diagnosis.
We're both we haven't. It's
and you got to find the empowerment in it, right? Just like you found the empowerment in it, I found the empowerment in it. It's a blessing. It really, really makes me even more so. I already know how precious life is, but it makes me that much more. Just stress to people, do not wait for the diagnosis. Don't wait for the bad news. Don't wait for this, that, or the other. Live today. Every day is such an incredibly precious gift. And even if, you're on one path, believe, just for fun, believe that it's part of God's plan. Don't doubt that. It's all part of God's plan He knows how strong you personally are compared to other people and that you can handle more than some people. So he has and it just, sometimes it sucks, but he knows what he's doing and you just have to trust. You just have to trust.
Trust that this is happening for you and not
to you.
Yeah, I think that everybody who's listening right now, we all have it in ourselves to get past these things that happen in your life that might take you down for a minute.
And it may actually save your life so that you could set new goals to lead you to your absolute best assignment to your greatness. Sometimes
I feel like it's
tragic,
chapters.
Right. And sometimes tragic. I know I've heard so many people talk about this too when I'm talking to them, and they say that this tragedy or that tragedy, it was so dark and it was so bad, but it actually saved my life in one way or another. Right?
Oh, I believe that. I mean, right down to why, look at what happened for me. Mm-hmm. Look what happened for me. Mm-hmm. I lose this job to find out that I fall into my business that turns out to be, something that changed my life, something that changed a lot of people's lives around me.
Right.
My parents' lives, my brother's lives, my family's life, your life, all of our lives, changed all of our lives and set me on a different trajectory. We probably wouldn't have met. There's things that are happening in your lives, these different chapters that happen in your life. And sometimes that door has to fully close.
That's right.
So that a new door can open.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Sometimes, or you might just be on the total wrong path and you've had the warnings, and he's like, I don't want to have to do this to you, sweetheart, but we're going to have to learn the wrong way
pull
so
the
you
rug
can
out.
rise
There you
from
go.
the ashes.
And then you fall on your face and you have
dear.
a bloody nose and a broken arm, but you figure your way out of it. I think
And you
we're
can
so
always
strong.
rebuild.
We're all so strong
resilient.
as people, and we're resilient.
Yes.
And I think that we all have it in us to get back up off of our knees. We just have to decide that we're going to.
Yeah.
We have to feel a little bit of sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Like, what is that purpose? Like for your mom, it was that she had other kids. For me, it was that I just saw something better for my life, like something greater. It actually opened my mind up to a little bit. Like, okay, what if I'm not a police officer? What could I be? What could I do? And then this opportunity comes up, and it feels like, oh, this is happening at the same time I'm thinking about this. Like maybe I need to go down this path.
Yeah.
And so we all have those
Stepping
things.
stones,
Yeah,
sure.
we have to be open to those new directions that we might take, and be open to the fact that we're going to be better because of it.
And also prepare yourself to rise higher than you've ever been.
And that's exactly what we should all be doing. And I hope that you guys, if you're listening, if that means, learning in those moments, if that means, reading the right book so that you can find the meaning of that moment, I think we've all done that. And I know we've done that. Both of us have done that. And in sometimes little things, not, it doesn't always have to be a big tragedy, but sometimes you're just depressed a little bit and, trying to find a new purpose in your life.
Yeah.
And you find yourself trying to grow, by reading and or listening or looking for that new purpose that you might have in your life. So if you're going through something like that, I hope that you guys can all find where you need to be. Keep your eyes open, be looking for that next opportunity or that next sense of purpose, or for who you want to have in your life at that time. Who is that person who can pull you in that new purpose, in that new direction? And pray about it.
Yeah.
Because I think we firmly find so much in prayer when we pray every morning. And I think there's moments, I have told you before, where I said, did you see, that idea that just kind of came up in the middle. I mean, I feel almost guilty sometimes because I come up with something like that in the middle of a prayer, and I'm like, my mind should have been totally clear and only be thinking about one thing. But then I sit back and I think maybe that's why I was meant to come up with that in the middle of a prayer.
Yeah. And sometimes if you don't feel like praying, you know who wants you not to pray. Pray, especially in those times when you're too tired or you don't feel like it, because there's something out there that doesn't want you to pray. So pray on it and let your comeback be a testament to your unwavering faith and God's grace. Rise strong, for you are destined for greatness.
And on that note, we hope that you guys got something from today's podcast. I know we've all been through stuff like this, and we want you to know that we've been through that at some of its worst levels, and we know you guys have too. Yeah. Everybody has dealt with stuff in their life, some more than others, but we all have the capabilities to find our way out of that. We were never given more than we can handle, and just know that there is a support system out there, and if you need help, find it and ask for it.
Come out as a victor or not a victim.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's Pretty and Punk podcast, and we will catch you guys next week.
God bless. Have the best week ever.
Thanks for listening to the Pretty and Punk podcast. If you want more, click the subscribe button below. And make sure to hit that thumbs up. It really helps us. God bless. Thank you for listening. Pretty and Punk